Your radio sucks, and that was a terrible choice. That's the last thing you want to hear when you're getting into FPV, and with so many radios on the market, we're going to make sure that never happens to you. G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and today we're going to be saving you time and money because this is the ultimate radio buyer's guide for 2025. What we've got here, if you are looking to start FPV or maybe you're looking for a bit of an upgrade, there are so many radios on the market. Trust me, I have tried them all, and what we're going to show you here, this is the hard facts, the data, so you never have to worry about, does this radio suck? No, because you've made the right decision, you've followed this and bought the right radio for you. So we're gonna go through them all. We've got a whole bunch. I'm also gonna list them over on DIY FPV. They're gonna be timestamped in the descriptions for you legends who wanna jump around if you're after a specific one. And also stay tuned towards the end because there is a lot of caveats. Are you a pincher? Are you a thumber? Are you doing long range? Are you gonna use modules? What protocol are you gonna use? We're also gonna be answering those as well. And ultimately a big one which doesn't get taken into consideration, what is it actually like to fly around with? Like the actual user experience when the goggles are down and you're flying? Do not undervalue that because that is critical when you're cruising around as well. So let's kick it off, go through the radios so you can find out what is the best radio for you in 2025. All right, the first cab off the ranks is the RadioMaster Pocket, arguably one of the most popular FPV radios out there, and for good reason. The big one, it is insane value. This bad boy, it's about $65. We're gonna go through some of the pros and cons of all these radios. So let's start it with this one. The pros, the things I like. I love the small form factor. It is really, really easy. If you're a thumbing pilot, it fits nicely in the hands. I love the folding antenna. It's very robust. I have dropped this so many times, and it is only recently that the little button broke off in the middle. So a very, very robust radio. It is hard to break if you're clumsy like myself. I love the simplicity of this radio. There's not too many knobs and dials and things to muck around with. It has 2 latching switches, which, believe it or not, is more than most of these other high-end radios here. Some of the things that could be improved on, or I guess just don't fit with this radio, is the standard gimbals that it comes with are just like nothing special gimbals like some of the others. We do have some better quality gimbals in some of these other upgraded versions. However, for the cheap price, you can also upgrade this. There is special CNC gimbals that you can do. I've installed that. You can see the difference here between these ones. And these are the standard gimbals right here, whereas these are the Nanos, I think that they're believed. RadioMaster makes some great stuff. It's rocking ELRS. It's just all in all a really good radio. Some of the things to keep in mind though is if you're a pinching pilot, well, I know Stickman Steve has no issues with this when he's pinching it. However, for people with larger hands, even though he has some massive meat cleaver hands, they might have some issues with it. So that's a bit of a personal preference. As far as I go when I'm flying around, I really, really like it. The power level, it is 350 watts, so it is not going to be suited for some insane long range flying, but it is going to be more, and I'm telling you this, more than 99% of the pilots ever use when it comes to flying around, just your everyday fun FPV. I use it all the time. It's sort of my go-to radio. I've had it for a long time, and for $65, it is incredibly easy to recommend, and bonus, you never need to upgrade it. The next radio we're going to talk about is the RadioMaster Zorro. Now this is a pretty popular radio as well, especially for pinchers. It does fit in the hand a little bit nicer than say the RadioMaster Pocket, but it's also a little bit more expensive, or significantly more expensive I should say. It's about $120. It's going to be linked down below as well. Some of the pros, things I do like about it, it has a foldable antenna. It does have a much bigger screen than RadioMaster Pocket, like the Pocket screen is absolutely tiny. And if you're a thumbing pilot, it's just going to fit, you're going to feel right at home. Now, some of the things that I don't like, you'll notice there's no latching switches, which is a bit of a bummer because latching switches are really important. If you're a pinching pilot, well, your mileage may vary. For me, I feel like it is much more suited to a thumbing pilot. And then finally, even though it is smaller, it is still going to take up a bit more space. If you're after a travel radio or something, even though you can fold the antenna down and everything, it is still sort of a very, very, very similar size to some of the other radios out there. Like it's probably still going to take up almost just as much space as the other radios. So it's not quite as small as it actually appears. Okay, the next one, get excited because this one really is fantastic. This is the RadioMaster Boxer, and there is 2 versions. There's one for about $140, and there is also the Crush version. In my opinion, if you're thinking about getting them, the difference is the gimbals that come with the Crush version are the CNC metal gimbals. They are amazing, And when you factor in the price of them alone, it makes the radio really, really good value. The RadioMaster here, what we've got, some of the things I do like about it, it fits great in the hand. Whether you're a thumbing pilot, whether you're a pinching pilot, I know Stickman Steve cruises his around all the time, you're gonna have an awesome time with this. It has a latching switch on one side. Unfortunately, it's not on both, but you know, still a bit of a plus there. A nice big bright screen. It's just, all in all, a great radio, especially if you want those high-end gimbals. Getting these off the bat in like the price, I think it's $190. I just have to give it two thumbs up. I also like on the back here, you have a strap that's not hard plastic, so it's not gonna break. I prefer that. You've got room for some big batteries in the well as well, so you can put in whether you're using LiPos or 18650s. You actually have a battery compartment, which is unlike some of the others. And of course, you can slap a module in the back. Some of the things I don't like, however, really, it's a little bit more difficult to transport than, say, some of these smaller radios. One of the reasons that that is the case is it also has this little screw antenna on the top as well. I much prefer the antennas that just simply fold down. Like a lot of these other radios, this feels like a bit of a relic from the past, and I hope maybe that changes in the future. But if that doesn't bother you, this radio is kind of like a go-to high quality radio that you will like, no matter whether you fly around with thumbs, pinch, or hybrid. It can do it all. It looks amazing, and for the price, it's great value if you want to upgrade, get that high end with good gimbals. All right, now this is a radio that I haven't used in a long time because simply I think there's better options out there, but you will still hear it because it was very, very popular. This is a T16. Now this is a full-size, massive radio, really big screen. It is the most expensive one as well. There is even like some really high-end versions that have like full metal faceplates and all that sort of stuff. Let me tell you, I don't think that that's worth it, because if you leave this radio in the sun or maybe in the snow, it's very cold or extremely hot when you're trying to cruise around with one of those radios. Like some of the others, you might not even be able to get them in ELRS. Like all the radios we've spoken about today have been ELRS, although it can take a full-size module. But for the price, there's like just better options out there. The pros, there's nothing wrong with it. It feels great whether you're a thumbing pilot, whether you're a pinching pilot. It's got a nice big screen. It's easy to navigate. The cons are, well, there's no latching switches. It's a little bit of an older style, like that relic style from the past. You don't have any special folding antennas, and it's kind of expensive, I think, for what you get today. So the T16S was a great radio, but it's not what I would be recommending people to get. All right, the next radio, and this one is like the radio I think that a lot of people are gonna say for 2025 is what they've got their eye on. This is the RadioMaster GX12, a fantastic radio. Again, it's rocking ELRS, but the big one about this, it has built-in native Gemini. I've got a whole video about what that is. Essentially just think, if you're doing some sort of interesting different missions and you wanna use crossband, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's good, because you actually don't need it if you're just starting FPV. Like I would never need to use that in all of my FPV experiences, but it's good to have that option there. If you're one of those people who wants to use crossband, well, stay tuned, because there might be some developments in the future. But yeah, it's got two foldable antennas. It fits very, very nicely in a thumbing pilot's hands. Some of the other pros I like, it's got a bunch of buttons on here. Unfortunately, there's no latching switches, which we'll get to in a little bit. I like the strap on the back. It's got a big battery bay. It feels really, really high quality. And for $170, it's another very, very solid choice. And even you do have some CNC gimbals in the middle right here. So there is so many positives with this radio. Now, the two things that I don't like about it. Number one, like I mentioned, no latching switches. For me, that is what makes the Pocket and the Tango 2 so special. Just having a latching switch up here. If you're an everyday FPV drone pilot, what do you need? An arm switch? Okay, great. Maybe a mode switch or a buzzer switch. That's about it. I don't use GPS. I don't use, like, there's so many features that we don't use on an everyday freestyle or racing FPV drones that, like, we don't need all these knobs and switches and dials. Now, you do get a couple of optional faceplates. You can change them out. Stickman Steve, he actually had trouble pinching it, because I got to say, even when I'm trying to hold this in a pinching style, you sort of need to rest your buttons on some of these potentiometers and switches and things like that. So that's my only downside. Watch some reviews on it. I really liked it. Stickman Steve didn't, but I know a lot of people out there said this was the radio for them. For $170, I cannot complain. I think it's an absolutely stellar radio. It's kind of like the radio of the future as well. Really big battery bay. It's sort of the radio that does it all. It's definitely the most feature-packed radio you're going to see if you're jumping in. The question is though, do you actually need that? Like, what's it going to let you do that you can't already do? Now, moving on. All right, the next radio we're talking about today is unique from all the other radios that you're going to see in this video. This is the Tango 2 from Team Black Sheep, and the one difference about this that is major and very important to know, this is using the Crossfire protocol. Everything else here, it's using ELRS. If you're going to be getting a Tango 2 for about $160, be mindful, you're going to be locked into the Tango 2 ecosystem. Now, what do you get for that money? You get a very compact little radio. I'm a thumbing pilot. It fits really well in my hand. It has really held up quite nicely, even to today's standards, although I do fly around ELRS far more than I do now Crossfire most days. You've got 2 latching switches, which is a bit of a plus. It's nice and simple. You're not going to get confused with any other switches and dials and setups. It's got exactly what you need it to do. The screen though is quite small. It has an inbuilt battery. And yeah, overall, I think the biggest limitation of this one, it just has such stiff competition. When it came out, it was amazing for $160. But nowadays, unless you really want to get locked into the TBS ecosystem, we've got so many options, which is exactly why I made this video. All right, the next radio, some of the best looking radios we have is the Jumper T15. Now this one, it's coming in at about $160. It is a great radio, but there's some features which are going to make it an absolute must for others, and maybe some other people couldn't care less about it. So what do you get for that $160? The pluses and also the minuses, well, you've got some nice little gimbals here. I don't think they're as nice as like the Boxer Crush. You've got a great folding antenna. You have only one latching switch on the left. Again, why do companies keep doing that? But the big one for me when it comes to this radio is you have a really big bright touch screen in the middle. Now that might not mean a lot to a lot of pilots when you're actually cruising around and you've got the goggles down and you're racing, but if you're into something a little bit more than everyday drone flying, maybe you want to do some long range, you need to look at your telemetry, maybe you're doing some fixed wing or flying some planes, this is a great recommendation for that. Some of the things I think this radio could do better though versus some of the others is, to be honest, not too much. The only thing for the price that makes this a little bit tricky is what's more important to you. Do you want the big touchscreen, or do you just spend a little bit more and get the high quality gimbals that are on the RadioMaster Boxer Crush? So that's probably the difference. If you're after something for fixed wing, this would probably be my choice. Still a pretty awesome radio. It's ELRS. You're gonna have an awesome time regardless. Just figure out what's important for you. Like, that's the point of this video, to make the best decision. Now, the last 2 radios we've got, we have one right here. This is also from Jumper. This is the T20. There's a couple of different versions. There is the Gemini version and also the standard version. They range from like $160 to $200 depending on what you want to get. I got to say, this is a really comfortable radio. It's about the same size as the GX12. If you're going to be putting it in your backpack and traveling and flying around and that sort of stuff. It has foldable antennas as well. It is very, very feature packed. A tiny screen on this one though. So if you need glasses like the Pocket or some of the others, it's going to be a little bit trickier to see, which was one of the pluses of the T15s, like big, gorgeous screen here. Here, you know, maybe you need to squint a little bit, but it's not every day you're looking at these screens. I never look at the Pocket screen. Once it's set up and flying, that might not be an issue for you. For me, it's very comfortable. I'm a pinching pilot, and I have to say, it's one of probably the comfiest radios that we have here on the bench today. The problem is though, you've got so many other choices, and for the price, I don't think it's doing enough in today's market to sort of get that across, but let me know what you think as well. No latching switches again. I like the folding antennas, really comfortable. It's just a bit of a hard sell for the price. That's my opinion on it anyway. And then finally, the last radio that we're going to be looking at today, and this one's relatively new. This is the Bumblebee radio. Now this radio right here, it is around $100. It's ELRS. It's got a folding antenna. It does have some, they're not so much latching, or it does have 2 smaller latching switches on the back, but what do you actually get? The gimbals, they feel pretty cheap if I'm honest. This I don't think is doing enough. It can go up to 1,000 watts, although all these radios are going to be more than enough. That's probably one advantage over something like the Pocket and the Tango 2. They've got lower max power output, although this can go up to 1 watt. It feels comfy in the hand. The gimbals for me though just feel a little bit shorter than what I'm used to. My full review should be out soon too. You should be able to go and watch that somewhere. A bit of a different scroll wheel. Again, small little screen like the Pocket or all these compact radios. The hard one about this is it just has so much competition, and I don't know if it's doing enough. Like, versus, do you spend a little bit more and get some incredible radios, or do you save some money and get some radios like the RadioMaster Pocket? This is the most important thing you need to know about this video. We're going to go through some caveats that are going to make it very, very important to understand before you make any purchase or upgrade any radio, because each one of these is doing something a little bit different, and there's a couple of things we need to touch on as well. And as a bit of a bonus, if you appreciate my content, if you like me making this video, trying to give you the right information to get flying, my Patreon's going to be linked down below. This might be the video that you say, you know what, Stu, I like what you're doing. Thanks for the info. I will sign up. So that link's down below, and it is greatly appreciated. Now, the things you need to know before you make a purchase. Any radio that you get here is going to be good enough. You do not need to upgrade again. If someone said to me, Stu, you get blindly given one of these radios, you're going to have to fly around with this for the rest of your FPV career. That is enough. You do not need insane power levels. Even like the RadioMaster Pocket at its 300 watts is more than enough for 99% of the pilots out there. All these radios can be updated, or I guess extended with their range with modules and things like that. We've got some special Gemini and crossband radios. If you don't know what they are, I'm telling you, you do not need them. It is almost like getting a fantastic meal to eat and worrying about what sort of cutlery you've got to eat it with. It's the same thing. The meat and potatoes of this video is the actual radio themselves, and you are not going to need to upgrade. Now, the second thing, pinching versus thumbing. There is no correct way to hold your drone. We've got pinching here, thumbing right here. I've done a bunch of videos on it. I think pinching is superior, and usually the smaller radios, which I think are great for transport, throwing them in your backpack, they can be more difficult for pinchers to hold because the switches get in the way, maybe their hands feel cramped, but it is not always the case. Like Stickman Steve, we've got this bigger radio, probably one of the better radios of like we've ever had in FPV with so many features, but Stickman Steve didn't like how it felt in his hand. I absolutely loved it. A lot of people don't like the Pocket for pinching, but Stickman Steve, he loves the Pocket. I think he's got the charcoal version. I've got two of these and I thumb. I love it. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to choosing the right radio. Now, here is my recommendations, and I've got three. The best radio if you're starting FPV in 2025, the most feature-packed radio if you want to be on the cutting edge of where our technology and where our hobby is, and if you're into like fixed wing and those sorts of things. My number one choice for FPV if you're starting in 2025 is the RadioMaster Pocket. It's upgradable. $65 is insane. I use it more than any other radio. Stickman Steve pinches with it. I thumb with it. It's got 2 latching switches. Throw it in your backpack. Extremely robust. Like, it's insane. And if someone said that's all you get, it's crazy, because that $65 price, that's enough for me. You don't ever need to upgrade that again. But if you do want to, you also have those options. So you can upgrade to like the really high-end CNC gimbals to put them inside here. So yeah, the RadioMaster Pocket, whatever version you get, you're gonna love it. You cannot go wrong with a RadioMaster Pocket. Now, my other one, my recommendation for the most feature-packed radio for the cutting-edge future-proofing, that would be this, the RadioMaster GX12, especially with its inbuilt native Gemini and crossband. It's got folding antennas. I really like the ergonomics, the shapes. There is so much to love about this radio. Yeah, it's about twice the price, or 2.5 times the price of the RadioMaster Pocket. But if you get this, it's got good gimbals straight off the bat. You're never going to have to worry about upgrading ever again. Like, it does it all. The only thing for me was for pinching pilots. Like, that's it. And I don't pinch. So this is almost a no-brainer as well. If you want like a more feature-packed radio, simply, there's never been a more feature-packed radio. Like this is that recommendation. And then finally, this one's a bit of an outlier, but we've got something from Jumper here, the T15. This is a fantastic radio as well. Like, they're all really good value for what they do. If you want a larger screen, maybe your eyes aren't as good, it is much easier to program on this thing. Sometimes if you just want to use the touch screen that's inbuilt to this big, bright radio, it's a color screen as well. Maybe doing fixed wing, maybe doing some multiple GPS points, or you just want a little bit more programmability and ease of use when you're doing that. So maybe you can take the goggles off, you're flying from a ground station and you want to look at what your radio telemetry data is saying, the T15 would be my choice for you. So overall, any of these radios that you get today that you've seen in this video, you're going to have an amazing time. The big question is, how much money do you spend, and what do those other radios let you do that you can't do with some of the others? Because even things like this, it's a great radio, but is it really worth it to me when I can actually save some money, get a cheaper version that might perform a little bit better? So hopefully that helped you. I'm going to link a guide for this and all the videos down below of all me reviewing it. My Patreon link is going to be here as well. If you're still watching, it'll be greatly appreciated because you guys help me make this channel, make this content, and maybe we've saved you some dollars as well, so you never have to hear, I've bought the wrong radio, your radio sucks, because now, you know what? You've got the right information, the ball's in your court, I know you can do it, and as always, happy flying.